Hey, everybody, you are watching and listening to the We Are Rising podcast. This is your host, Andrew Benjamin, and I'm joined by a very special guest today. With us, we have Teep to the Junk, and we will be talking all things Bellator today. Teep, how you doing, my man? We haven't talked in quite a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute. How you doing, Andrew? Good to hear your voice.
Well, yeah, let's go right to it. Let's talk about Bellator. I guess as they say, new year, new me, new year, new Bellator, kind of in a way. Let's start with the light heavyweight Grand Prix. They already had won the quarter round matches last week with Ryan Bader defeating Lyoto Machida in a rematch from the UFC many eons ago. But now we got three more quarter round matchups. Let's talk about the two that'll be happening this week. Let's first start off with light heavyweight champion Vadim Nemkov taking on Phil Davis. Actually, a rematch. Also, what do you think about this match? Do you think that Phil Davis has a chance to get that win back?
Yes,
Uh,
I do. I think Davis has a very real chance, maybe like higher than anyone else. I'll put it, unless Romero looks like a god at 205, like his speed power gets better than it is was at middleweight, or Rumble Johnson comes in as good as before. Unless those happen, I mean, I think this is the hardest fight for Nemkov in this tournament. Davis has cardio. He's really hard to hurt. He's hard to catch flush. Even in his terrifying reign, Rumble Johnson, couldn't get Davis out of there. He did beat him, but he couldn't get him out of there. And now we're talking Rumble Johnson, who got everyone else out of there until he met Cormier. So I think Davis is extremely difficult for him. And I'm not sure about you, but I felt like when Davis fought Machida, he actually showed improvement in his stand up. He was crisper. You might notice his rear hand, he was keeping that real close to the jawline and snapping his lead hand back off the jab and doing things that maybe in other fights, if you look at his other Bellator fights, he's always hard to hit, but he didn't look as crisp. But it wasn't a very active fight. But I thought in that Machida fight, Davis showed a new wrinkle in his game. It was throwing those low kicks. The guy who legs that big should be throwing low kicks. He should be willing to like tear up someone's legs if they won't if they won't cooperate as far as letting them get close or wrestle and like that. But Nemkov he's only 28 years old. He's an absolute like the early peak. I'll put it. He still has room for improvement. Especially in like the cardio area, which is part of Davis's avenue to victory. But let me ask you before I say any more, where do you think on the spectrum of like maximizing their potential, where would you say Nemkov is right now at 28?
I think he's. You mean like in terms of ranking? Like, what did you like? Do you mean worldwide ranking
Is
type?
is he at is he securely into his prime right now, based on what we saw in the certainly the last fight, or do you
Oh,
think he still is going to get more dangerous, like noticeably and more dangerous in the next year or two?
um, on the surface, I think we're gonna see him get more dangerous. It'll be interesting to see how he does in this tournament setting. This is the second tournament he has been in. Um, the last time he was in a tournament was back in Rizin, and that was the open weight. Was that the open weight tournament? I think that was the open weight. It was the open weight or heavyweight tournament where
It was the heavyweight, yeah, it was the
yeah,
one King Mo one.
yeah, and he lost to Jiri, who's now in the UFC, Jiri Prohaska. So let's see. I don't want to say that judging by that he wasn't prepared for that tournament. He was a little bit younger, different environment. I think from what we have seen in Bellator, was like the fight he had against Liam McGeary, and also the first Davis fight. I'll say the thing is that the thing about the Davis fight is that he almost lost that though. That's the thing is that people gotta remember he almost came close to losing that fight. I think it was the third round Davis started making that comeback. Do you remember? Was
Yeah,
that
Yeah, Mr. Wonderful was going for that submission, and the clock ran out when he was torquing on the arm. It was
Mhm.
very close, and that was only a 3-rounder. Now, granted, Nemkov is aware, and he already had like a cardio issue because he's a high pace, high output guy.
Yeah.
But even by the end of the first round, when Davis fought Nemkov, to me, Nemkov looked uncomfortable with the pace and the fact that he was landing on Davis. Couldn't like Davis could be disheartening for certain fighters to compete against because one, if you screw up, he can put you in a really bad place really quickly. Extremely strong. You know, he doesn't always flash the wrestling ability and the submission ability, but he'll slap a Phil Mora on you in a second. I think he almost got King Mo with that, his own little variation on the move. But he's very underrated, and I think people conflate the excitement levels in his fight with how hard he is to beat in a fight. And Davis presents a lot of difficulties specifically for someone like Nemkov, who's used to like having a serious impact on someone in the stand-up like he did with Bader. I mean, he was smacking Bader around. He got hit too, but he tagged Bader with some great stuff in a way that it's much harder to tag Davis that way, even though head-to-head, Davis and Bader had a pair of very close fights.
I also want to
So I
ask.
think,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, brother.
I was gonna say also with that first fight, the Bader Nemkov, did Bader seem like, and I saw this is the same thing that the same, I guess, kind of demeanor he had when he fought Rumble. Did Bader seem kind of almost, I don't know, tentative, very almost hesitant, and that's maybe also why he lost as well.
Maybe a tiny bit later in the fight, especially after he got stunned. Remember, he froze for a second. Nemkov brought the big right hand over, and Bader just kind of hovered in time just for a beat. But yeah, I'm sure. And at the end of the first round, Bader looked like, holy fuck, what am I doing? Oh, sorry about my language there. But he
That's
was
okay.
like, holy crap, what am I doing? You know, what am I doing here? Like that, because he's not used to someone like with Nemkov's specific attributes. I can't think of someone he's fought who has, like Nemkov has a meaningful jab and a meaningful jab cross, and he has the laser straight cross and also the looping cross. So if you're circling away from Nemkov, he can still deliver it, and he adjusts on the fly. He's got the low kick. He's got the counter wrestling. You know, Bader took him down, and then Bader got up out of the guard because Nemkov was starting to shrimp and starting to threaten submission, and then dropped some big elbows on him. Bader actually got out of his best position on purpose because he was having a tough time with it. I don't know if it's quite the same the way it lines up with Davis, but I do think Bader was affected. Nemkov is a serious proposition, and but I thought at the beginning of the fight, Bader looked very energetic. He looked like he's been looking like fast movement coming in, ready to throw some hands with extreme speed. But Nemkov, the way he circles, the way he's willing to use double and triple jab, and his variety of strikes, that's not really something Bader that I can think of as having a fight. I mean, Rumble Johnson, I've been watching some of his highlights. Yeah, he had a mean lead leg shin kick that he would throw, that he was landing on people and stuff. So, I mean, credit to him in his prime for that kind of variety. But then, of course, Bader did lose that fight. So,
I think
not
also,
much solid there.
but sorry to kind of like go on tangent on your question. I do think on the surface, I think we will see Nemkov just becoming better. That this is not not that he's not in his prime, but his prime is yet to come, and he's still developing as a fighter. I think I think he's going to get better. You know, the Phil Davis fight is just very interesting because uh how long when did they first fight? Him and
I think it's about 2.5 years, right?
yeah. So it'd be interesting to see, you know, if he recognizes Phil Davis I'm talking about, recognizes the mistakes he made in that fight and can come back. I mean, you know, I don't see it going to a finish, that fight. I think it'll probably be another close split decision, I think. I honestly believe that. Teep better run from the
It could
cops.
be. Yeah, right. But it could be. I'm thinking that this one is more likely to have a feature finish because it's 5 rounds,
Mm-hmm.
and because of Davis, it's so generic to say athleticism, but his physique, he looks like a cobra. He's got like a cobra back, like a larger Tommy Hearns type cobra back. It's hard to adequately describe how physically intimidating he
Well,
is
here,
in there, but it's deceptive because he moves kind of, like Gumby had a couple to drink,
yeah.
or he used to,
Well,
but in the Machida fight, he fixed it.
here's the other thing I also like to point out with Bader as well. He knows it's the fights that he wins kind of like by decision, split decision. He knows how to do enough, but without going the extra step, if that makes any sense. I mean, he'll like the Machida fight, which I was there live for Bellator 245.
Oh,
He
cool.
did just enough to win, and I don't know. The thing about Nemkov is I don't know if you can just do just enough against Nemkov. You know what I'm saying? Like Machida, he's
That's a great
older.
point.
Machida is much older. You could probably, you can. There's a little bit less risk you have to worry about. I mean, you still have to worry about getting knocked out by Machida, but probably like less than Nemkov. The same thing with the. I know he lost the 2 Ryan Bader fights. They were close again. Again, those are 2 close fights, and
They were incredibly close. They could have gone either way. Same with the Davis Nemkov fight. I didn't know who won the fight. I wanted Nemkov to win, and I believe when they fought, I was still drinking, so like I was much less objective. I just wanted Nemkov to win, but it was close enough. It wouldn't have been a robbery either way. I think when a fight is close, fans get used to just screaming robbery if close one doesn't go the way they like,
mm-hmm.
and a lot of times it's just really close. And if you have an odd number of rounds that are really close, it's not much. There's not much difference. I see it in boxing too, like with the first Fury Wilder fight, which wasn't a very active fight, and people were.
Oh, Teep, we lost you. Well, while oh, you back?
Wait, I got cut off for a second. Hear me?
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that, but I was saying like the first Fury Wilder fight was an inactive fight, especially early in the fight. The first 4 rounds, neither guy really did much. People were screaming robbery as though it was just a one-sided beating the whole fight, and there was no way that a judge could give a close round the other way. Getting really outraged about it, and that happens a lot in MMA, where people. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. But that happens a lot in MMA. And so Davis, he could have easily gotten the nod in that fight. It wouldn't have been crazy. It would have been like, I would just been like, oh shit, my guy didn't win.
Yeah.
So I think in this fight, they really are settling something. It was close enough that they did not settle the question who the better fighter is. And if that fight had gone on, Davis was winning that fight. Nemkov was getting gassed. Davis had him in an ugly position. If he had to come out for rounds 4 and 5, it was good night Nemkov, I think. And I hate to say that because I think Vadim, like his skill set is formidable. And if he can bring his cardio up to the level of his pacing and talent and his attack, then he's going to be just a terrorizing force. But someone like Davis can exploit if he gets tired because Davis doesn't necessarily have that issue. His issue is pacing, not that he gets tired. He just doesn't throw his foot on the gas.
Here's the other thing that people don't remember. So the reason why he lost the Jiri fight, Nemkov back in Rizin was due to quote retirement. Basically, he after he got beat on pretty bad by Jiri and he couldn't continue. He opted to I guess forfeit. The
That's
forfeit.
right.
And I know that was a few years ago, so that's a little bit different. But like you said, Nemkov, if Phil Davis if Phil Davis is the one who's dictating the pace, then I think Nemkov's going to have some difficulty. If Nemkov, is the one who's dictating the pace for Davis, I think Davis can adjust. So I put it this way: I think if it goes to a decision, I think the further it goes, the more likely you'll favor Davis. So for Nemkov to win, he has to somehow finish the unfinishable Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's a tough fight. I have the winner of this fight being the clear tournament favorite. I know Davis lost to Rumble, but I have a feeling that Rumble coming off a layoff, a long way, 3.5 year layoff, followed by one fight against an elite middleweight, older middleweight. He's not going to be ready for Davis. Davis has now seen Cormier wrestle. Davis can close the gap if he gets gauge on the speed and Rumble isn't quite as fast as he used to be. He can still have the power, but if he isn't quite as fast, I think he's going to get wrestled if Davis is the guy. I'm not sure what Nemkov will do. I think Nemkov might just kickbox him because Nemkov is very quick and uses a lot of head movement. I think he would possibly stay on the feet with Rumble, especially sitting if he can't get him down. He's used up a bunch of energy, and this is a concern for Nemkov. He's even said in his camp, focusing on, output stamina, one of the two of the things that they've really focused on. Nemkov does have a big advantage in this tournament in that his mentor is the greatest hand-to-hand fighter in the history of combat sports, modern combat sports. So
Steven Seagal?
Yes, that's right. That's right. He's gonna teep him right in the face. Sorry, the second greatest, Fedor, the second greatest, second only to Steven Seagal, and that is a big advantage. I mean, he's now 5.5 years into tutelage from the great one, and so it's a long time now. Fedor.
Sorry to interrupt you, Tipo. Let's move on so we can talk about the rest of this. So the other fight that'll be happening on the same card tomorrow, Friday, will be Corey Anderson taking on. I'm gonna try and not butcher this guy's name, Dovletson Yagshimuradov.
Yagshimuradov,
Yagshimuradov.
Sambo. Another Sambo fighter.
Another from Turkmenistan. Actually fighting out of Ukraine, born in Turkmenistan. So we got another one of those Eastern Bloc fighters that all these MMA promotions are like desperately trying to find the next Khabib. So what's what do you think about this fight? So we got Yagshimuradov making his Bellator debut, but he's on an insane win streak, 8 fights win streak, taking on Corey Anderson, who do you think that he made that he showed enough in that Melvin Manhoef fight to kind of establish himself as a serious contender in this tournament?
I think what he's done in recent years shows that he's at a minimum a contender level fighter. But whether or not that translates, I mean, now he's fighting Yagshimuradov. If I'm not mistaken, he was the ACB champion. So now he's fighting you can say regional, but I mean he's fighting a champion who still retains whatever lineage he had, whatever validation he got from the guys that he did beat in his streak. And I've seen his highlights, and Yagshimuradov has a beast of a right hand. He's got skills in lots of different ways. He's a Sambo fighter, but he's got a serious rocket fist, and that could be something. That could be an opportunity for him. Like Anderson maybe gets a bit overbashed for chin issues, but if you're ever going to have an issue just reveal itself, it's going to be against a guy like this. But he's like 4 inches taller. They're both 31 years old, and I have no idea who's going to win, but I do believe in the power of combat sambo, and it's not just Fedor team. I mean, you can look at Khabib's camp. People say wrestling, but for many years, until he became the big UFC star and then got the marketing push, it was combat sambo was recognized as his base. Now they're all like, oh, Dagestani wrestling. It's like, he was a combat sambo world champion. That's a mixed martial art. Like, let's keep it straight. So same with Yaroslav Amosov. Sambo base. And you saw against Logan Storley, just extremely diverse, used to integrating the different techniques and approaches. They just take the jacket off, take the headgear off, they jump in a ring or cage instead of on a mat. And the Sambo guys go, because that's what they've been training. So that's a big advantage for them compared to, say, a boxer who has to learn wrestling and grappling, has to learn integrate the grappling wrestling with the striking. Same Phil Davis, national champ wrestler, had to learn to strike. Vadim Nemkov, Sambo fighter, striking and grappling, no problem. You just have to learn to do it without the judo jacket on.
Mm-hmm.
So Yagshimuradov, if he smashes Anderson, I won't be surprised. If he gets smashed, I won't be surprised. Great fight. I have no prediction, though. I'm curious about your prediction. I think you've probably seen more of Anderson than I have.
Yeah, here's the thing. Anderson is, in pro wrestling, I guess you would call him a good hand. He's somebody who I never think will ever be champion. I don't want to say gatekeeper because I think gatekeeper is a little bit. I think gatekeeper shouldn't be a negative term, but it's kind of become a negative term. Listen, not everybody can be champion, or else champions would be, they'd be meaningless. So my
Yeah, I
my
hear you.
my personal belief is that I can see Corey Anderson maybe making it to the semifinals. I could see him being Yagshimuradov, just because he's a good, well-rounded fighter who can do enough to get a win. Listen, I think that Corey Anderson he'll beat and finish lower tier fighters, but then when it comes to higher level fighters, he will he will not achieve a lot against them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I
So
see what you're saying. Like we know he's in a contender position. We know he's capable of beating up the unworthy or the questionable, but then in those highest level collisions, which is what he's going to face. I mean, Fedor's in his mid to late 30s, but Fedor is still looking like a world class fighter. He's not had a noticeable drop off. If that, other than maybe strategically, like I've seen some people comment that Fedor waited too long to just get in there and start manhandling Machida. I mean, it's easier said than done with Machida, but at the same time, Rockhold drowned him in chaos. Fedor's not going to do the spinny shit that Rockhold did to gain that position. You know what I mean? Like Fedor is a serious ground threat, and unless he's fighting Nemkov, that was the biggest shock in the Nemkov fight. It wasn't that he kicked Fedor in the head or that he knocked him out with the casting punches. He was trying to get some space. It was the fact that he made Fedor nope out of the wrestling. That was significant. Because at that point, I was like, oh shit, he's probably going to win this. Because that was my real question about the fight. If Fedor take him down, and then what happens when they get there? What happened was, anyway, we talked about Nemkov. I don't want to keep going on.
I'll put it this way: I could see Corey Anderson grinding out a decision. Just keeping his distance. Cage pressing against the cage, and just keeping the distance close enough where the sambo fighter can't utilize any sort of offense. But I can see Anderson getting finished by this guy. One swipe of that right hand, like you said, and then boom, he goes. Corey Anderson goes down. Corey Anderson has been knocked out numerous times by people like John Blachowicz and Jamie Manawa. So if he goes up against a guy who is a power puncher, he tends to be. I know he beat Manhoff, but let's be honest, Manhoff is not the same that he was even a year ago. He's got that one punch power and that's it, and you can easily negate that. Turkmenistan guy, apologize, I'm gonna call him the Turkmenistan guy because I feel bad butchering his name. Well, is much more of a well-rounded guy. He's got submission, he's got striking that he can utilize. So I think this will be a very tough fight for Anderson. But I am interested to see what Turkmenistan has to offer. Now, the next fight we got to talk about is obviously the fight that I think a lot of fans are interested in. Rumble Johnson taking on Yoel Romero. Thoughts, Teep?
That is quite an interesting fight. I didn't think the Bellator would sign Romero, and I was pretty surprised they got Anderson. I was like, look, Romero's
well, didn't Romero worked with Coker back in the Strikeforce era, right?
Yeah, he fought at light heavyweight. He got knocked out, but he's fighting up with the big boys. So now he's back with the big boys, a lot wiser, a lot more elite experience. Well, he now has elite experience and no weight cut. So it's a big question mark because if he looks refreshed at 205, because that like sucking off 20 less pounds of fluids and food out of your system is a big difference. So if he looks phenomenal, I mean, it's very intriguing, but he might just be that he's too small and that his head is too small and that at light heavyweight, it's like before when he gets hit and he's fighting Rumble. So like for the first few minutes, Rumble is terrifying, even against Cormier. It's not like It's not like DC just beat his ass right away. DC ate some stuff to get to that position, but DC has one of the great chins, even when he was older.
I think didn't I think Cormier made a comment about Johnson's striking. Like he said that like it was the hardest punch he ever got or something. I think he said something along those lines that like, yeah, and I don't know it didn't knock him out, but I remember that fight and it definitely, you know, made DC change up his game plan because I think he immediately went for that takedown and then choked him out after. I
That's
think
right. So when he got hit in the scramble, people were criticizing. I'm remembering criticizing Rumble for fight IQ because he was kind of like, and I think in the second fight too, like it's like avoid wrestling at all costs. You're fighting Daniel Cormier. You're not fighting someone you want to even begin to wrestle. You are the most dangerous striker. Ensure that you do that. It was almost like Alejandra Lara when she was fighting Watanabe, and she's doing that thing that she was doing on Fedor Ortega, where when she had the reach advantage, she sort of the hop in, kickboxing style, you know, hop in, sort of the 1-2 and things like that. But of course, against Kana, who wanted to be close, it meant that she got taken down. And it's like a fight IQ issue rather than a skills issue, just the approach. So I'm very interested to see how Romero and Rumble approach each other because they could fight 5 times, and if they each pick a slightly different approach, it could end differently. Because Romero is going to be fast. He's going to be one of the fastest people that Rumble has fought. And Rumble's coming off a layoff. But at the same time, has Romero ever gotten in the cage with someone who hits as hard as you know, Anthony Johnson?
Mm-hmm.
He's not impossible to hit. You know, but getting clipped by AJ is different than getting clipped by a smaller man. Even a high-level, elite smaller guy like, you know, like Romero is faced. And you saw it when Adesanya moved up in weight. When Max Holloway moved up in weight. A lot of people move up in weight. It's Douglas Lima against Musasi. The amount of kicks he landed on the Moose would have crippled someone who's much lighter. And it jacked his leg up, but it didn't have the same effect. It's hard to move up in weight and maintain the power. Conor didn't maintain his power. He still had power, but he wasn't like, I'm going to ice you with a punch power. You know, it was flurries that got Alvarez. And Nate took his shit. So I think approach has everything to do with who wins this. I'm very intrigued by it. I'm curious about your thoughts.
I think that Joel Romero is an overrated fighter. I've never been this huge fan of his. I know that like I think he's more of a. I think he's good, but I'll say you know it's here's the thing. I'll find baffling. This guy, he competed in the Olympics, right? I think he competed in the Olympics, right? Did he compete in the Olympics or win a medal in the Olympics, or did he just qualify for that?
So, no, he medaled.
Okay.
Excellent wrestler, you know, in his youth.
That's a funny thing is that for a guy who's a wrestler, I have seen him get taken down numerous times, and I find it baffling that he gets taken down so many times, and he rarely ever utilizes his wrestling, which I find very funny.
I think he started late, so it could be a cardio issue. Mm-hmm. Like as DC got older, he was less because like okay, when Cormier was in his early 30s, right, and he's already passed his physical prime because he had the kidney failure and the lead up to the Olympics, but he's still close enough to his physical prime. He'd just go and grab a guy and slam him. He'd get a high crotch slam on Josh Barnett of all people. How are you going to high crotch a legend like that? But he did it because he knew he had the reserves of energy. He was close enough to his physical vigor that he still retained a lot of that. But Romero started at a similar age. I think he was about 30 when he started. So once you get to your mid-30s, he's thinking about the gas tank. And so what he does offensively, and so it's just unfortunate that a lot of those guys, they peak early. So like Romero at 185 in, say, 2001, like 14, 15, he was just a killer. Because he's still in his 30s, he's still doing it. Now he's in his 40s. It's not the same. He might be explosive at times, but he's going to reserve. He's going to slow his pace. Not everyone is like Fedor, where he still kind of plows forward as best he can with the speed and the pressure. You know, some guys, they back off.
I also think that Romero looked like dog shit in the Izzy fight. He absolutely, not that Izzy looked any better, but I think Romero looked 10 times worse than Izzy did. I think he's become kind of a meme fighter because He's a big muscular black guy, dark skinned, I'll say, dark skinned guy who talks in broken English. And for some reason, fans love fighters who talk in broken English. We see that with Khabib, GSP at his when he wasn't fully fluent in English. Fans just seem to like people who just talk like that. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, in the UFC, they made Mackenzie Dern. She has to use broken. She's like doing interviews in the cage in broken English. They got a translator there. She's from like California.
Yeah. So or who
It's like,
just
come on, man. Like, don't ham it up. Like, that's so embarrassing. I mean, I like it in pro wrestling. Before I cared about fights at all, I was a huge pro wrestling fan back in like the promoter wars.
yeah.
WWF.
I think Romero's best days have gone to the wayside. I think I know he's only been finished once in his career. That was I think that was Nate Quarry. Was that Nate Quarry who knocked him out? I think.
Marco, I think, wasn't it?
But I think Johnson's going to knock out Romero. And I think
That's cool. Just a heads up, Andrew. I've been up most of the night. I work days and nights at the moment, so if I get some names wrong or if I'm a little scattered, that's all that is.
No, that's
Beyond
fine.
my normal stupidity.
I think Johnson's. I think this will be easy win for Johnson. I will question, the fact that Johnson has not been active in an MMA setting. I'll say that I'm curious to know how he'll look. But he's also this guy. He's taking. This isn't his first foray into like a sabbatical, if I remember correctly. I think when he got cut from the UFC the first time, I know he did. I know he did the what was it? I know he fought Arlovsky in what was that promotion? Was that IFL that he fought him in? Is that IFL? I can't remember, but
World Series of Fighting might have been World Series of Fighting.
I think he also kind of took a little bit of a sabbatical then as well. I think, and then he came back. I don't think it was as long as this one, but someone will have to correct me on that. But listen, I've been a Rumble fan since the beginning, even when he was missing weight at 170. I'm a fan. I think that the John Jones Rumble Johnson fight was the biggest money fight next to him versus between Bone, other than Bones and DC, that you could have made.
That would have been a good fight. I was curious to see how that would have played out.
Honestly, right now, my favorite right now to win is Rumble Johnson. I'm very intrigued to see if I don't want to see him versus Phil Davis again. I'd be very, I want Nemkov to win because I'd be interested to see how Nemkov versus Johnson. I think that'd be a very interesting match stylistically.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Because
that's what I expect to see. I expect Rumble to clip Romero and finish him. Maybe in the first few minutes. He's just so much bigger, and he was always very fast. That was part of his dangers. He was very fast for a guy with that power. The ratio, if you can be slower and have knockout power and do worse than someone who has less power but like a lot more speed. And if Rumble looks true to form, he should destroy Romero. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure about Nemkov Davis. I only have Nemkov like maybe just slight favorite, but against everyone else, including Rumble, I have Nemkov as a fairly significant favorite.
I also think
Davis is tough, man.
I think from a business point of view as well, that's the other thing. You got to think of this as a business. I think if I'm Scott Coker, I'm hoping and praying to the MMA blood gods that Johnson wins, Nemkov wins. I don't think Corey Anderson or oh my god, I'm forgetting his opponent's name already.
Yagshimuradov.
Yeah, Yagshimuradov. Because I don't see them either making it to the finals. To tell you the truth,
you don't think they'll get past Beta?
I don't think they'll get past Bader. I would be really surprised. I know I said before that Corey. I could see Corey final. I think Corey Anderson makes it to the semifinals the most, and then Bader stops him. Same thing with Yagshimuradov. I think ideal. It's very hard to see. I think Bellator ideally. I think they want Nemkov to kind of go through everybody and retain the champion. They want a strong champion. They kind of want like a Pitbull, who looks strong in all those defenses, making it to the tournament and looking great. Because that's how you establish champions. It's interesting because at first I wasn't a fan of the champion defending their thing, their belt, in the Grand Prix, because I was just thinking, what happens if, first round, champion loses, and then the second round that new champion loses, and then you're having that belt, being switched to 3 or 4 different people. And I think that makes that makes your division and your belt look bad. But I think so far, we've seen, that it has worked so far. It'll work when it'll work until it doesn't work anymore. And then there's like 4 or 5 champions in a month span.
Yeah, I think they can they could spin that. I assume what they want is Fedor's protege to just smash the whole thing. He's 28 years old. Fedor's key student, smashing everybody and coming out, and then being able to genuinely say, look, this guy's obviously the best in the world at this weight. That's the best case scenario. Rumble is semi-old. Fedor is semi-old. Davis is semi-old. Romero is actually old. Yagshimuradov and Anderson are young. So as far as from a promotional point of view, I think the best case scenarios for them is Anderson or Nemkov winning, because they're younger. Anderson's marketable. He comes with a fan base he built in the UFC, and he also is extremely happy with Bellator and very vocal. So just from the promotional point of view, that would be a giant win for them. A guy they can market who's very vocally said, Bellator treats me like a person. Right away I felt the warmth. Not flagging off the UFC, but he's made very clear his frustrations with dealing with them. I think advertising push.
I also think that also whenever Fedor has his, I guess, retirement fight, assuming it's in Bellator, they probably would like to have Nemkov maybe, on the same card as well. I think that's something that
Nemkov, Tokov brothers, they should put the whole team on the card.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if they put Team Fedor on the entire card for something like that. But I mean, so right now you think, like, gun to your head, Nemkov is the one who wins?
Nemkov or Beta. Nemkov's slightly more favored than, not Beta, I'm sorry, Nemkov or Davis. I think Davis beat Beta if they fight again. Even though both have improved since their last 2 fights, but I think if Davis can figure out a way to get past Nemkov and then either Rumble or Romero, he's going to have to adapt to be able to do that. So if he gets to that point, I'd favor him over the other guys in the finals. Unless Yagshimuradov shows us something crazy. He's got a nice little highlight. He's got a lot of power. He's a stocky guy. The Sambo base gives him versatility. So there's a lot of question marks. But if you gun to my head, Nemkov, and still. How about you?
Right now, my favorite is honestly Rumble Johnson. That will obviously change if he loses. But for now, I'm picking Rumble Johnson to win this thing. It's always funny that Rumble Johnson has defeated guys who have had higher technique than him, and just with one punch. And I think if somebody like a Nemkov who's never fought him before if Nemkov wins and then Johnson wins, I think that's a very tough fight for Nemkov, just based on the fact that Johnson is such, the power behind him is unreal. And I think a lot of fighters who go in fighting him don't really believe that he has that much power. And if Nemkov is not careful, he can, I think Johnson might actually beat him. And I think if I'm looking at the matches right now, I would say if it came down to Johnson and Anderson, I would pick Johnson, like, without a doubt. Same thing with Johnson versus Bader. So out of all these, I think Johnson is right now my favorite to win.
I can see that. I mean, if he returns true to form, he's a serious factor. Like if you took him back when he was on his run before he met Cormier, and you took him on his run then and stuck him in this tournament, he'd probably be the tournament favorite, even over Nemkov, just because of like what we had seen in that time was like, dear God, like I had a lot of admiration for Davis for just lasting that fight.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, Davis is better than I thought. and I already knew Davis was elite, but the fact that he didn't get blasted out, he was getting tagged, and he was on having to fight off the back foot and stuff. The number was terrifying, but he actually lasted. Like Davis is incredibly durable, along with other attributes that help him be a high level fighter. But he's so durable.
So I got a question for you as well, since we got some time left. What do you think about the featherweight finals have been decided? It will be Patricio Pitbull taking on, it's Patricio, right? I want to make sure I'm getting it right. Patricio Pitbull taking on AJ McKee. Thoughts on who wins that fight? Because I think it's an incredibly compelling fight.
Yeah, I have. It's hard for me to pick a winner, but I give an advantage stylistically to Pitbull. Not much of one, because there's a lot of factors in play, and McKee is big for the weight class. And not Michael Chandler, stocky big. AJ McKee is very long, and you can use that in and out. And he's agile enough. He doesn't necessarily have to overstep, go into a horse stance like Chandler did, which is what got him knocked down. He has better form than that. He brings his whole center of gravity with him as he comes in and out. But stylistically, Pitbull loves people who dart in. Whether it's the really fast guy like Archuleta, we saw Archuleta come in again and again on Patchy Mix, who is quick and land combos to the body and stuff. But when he came in on Pitbull like that, he got tagged and almost got guillotined. We saw Pedro Carvalho, who's good volume punching, come in and he got pummeled with the fist, even though he had the range, even though he had the output. Emmanuel Sanchez crowded, and Daniel Weichel is very technical and fight going forwards or backwards and side to side. So those two presented more problems for Pitbull. But AJ, as good as he is, he likes to come in like he did with Karakanyan, boom, boom, I'm jumping in. You're jumping in on Pitbull with your hands out. It's very hard to predict how quickly he can, to appreciate how quickly he can flip his head off the center line and land meaningful punches, those little arms. So I got to favor Pitbull, but not by much, because McKee is brilliant and only going to get better. And it hurts me to pick against my dude. McKee, I think I'd favor him against anyone else in their bracket, except maybe Pico in a year, or JJ Wilson. Okay, there are guys coming up who could present problems. But as far as the existing guys, McKee is something extra special. But no, I think Pitbull, the first time they fight, I'm leaning Pitbull. I got to know, man. How about you?
I picked McKee. Now, I was dead wrong when initially another undefeated fighter took on a high champion when I picked Patchy Mix to beat Archuleta. But every time I've seen McKee, he's had more fights, I think, where we discern what his weaknesses are. But honestly, I'm trying to think of what Patricio, on paper, Patricio should win. But the thing is that McKee, he does things. He's only 26, and he's defeated people who I would think he should not defeat. That Darren Caldwell fight, that was entirely all on Caldwell. I think more people thought Caldwell was going to win that than McKee, excuse me. He's so good. McKee, I don't think it's fair. We can't call him a prospect anymore, right? He's way above prospect at this point, right?
No, I mean, he's defeating ex-champion fighters, and now, he's far beyond. I guess we could say we haven't seen his ceiling. He's still young enough. He's going to get even better, which is terrifying. But no, he's way past prospect. I mean, he's beaten prospect, and he's beaten, what we might call MMA journeyman. He's also beaten elite fighters and champion level fighters, contender level fighters.
But it's also the way he defeats them. It's also the way he defeats all these people, all these fighters. And it's almost like he has, I can't recall any fight that I've seen where he's lost a round. Maybe I'm incorrect. Maybe you can correct me on that. But can you recall a fight where he's lost a round?
Campos was wrestling him. I don't know if he lost. I can't even remember if that was in the round finished him. But Campos was able to wrestle him, but apparently he hurt himself in that fight. And so, which heightens how epic it was that he snatched that submission when he could. He had injured himself early in the fight. But no, I haven't seen him where, other than that, I haven't really seen him people have tried to put him in bad spots, but he's incredibly good at getting out of them. Teixeira went for takedown. AJ just kicked off, came up swinging, and knocked him out the scramble with a beautiful left. You know, lightning fast, but just sort of like levered his arm up with his forearm and then sent the left through and just bodied him. So I think, you know, McKee has more tools to beat Pitbull than anyone else at the moment in the division, but it's just knowing what Pitbull can do stylistically. I have to lean slightly toward him, but I won't be shocked. Nothing that happens will shock me in that fight. It's so close. But if I have to pick one, if I have to say who has more like, maybe Pitbull, but maybe only like 55%. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Barely. But I do. But Pitbull is incredibly difficult to fight if you want to close the gap quickly, because that's his thing. He goes to the center cage and he doesn't have the gaps in fight IQ like Karl will, where maybe he brought his head off the center line while he was down there. The opportunity presents itself. Or Campos in the scramble where his arm was just a little bit out of position. Pitbull is so fundamentally sound and compact. His fight IQ is massive, so that's why he commands the center of the cage, and then a guy comes in, he's going to try to beat them back when they dart in, or if they let him, he can smash the neck. And he's one of the best in the business at getting that neck. Because usually we're like, oh shit, he jumped the guillotine. But with Pitbull, that usually means that's it. Like literally, he knows he's got the guy. He's too strong to get off, so he's like, I'm going to take that. Happened with Sanchez. Shocked the shit out of me. Because Sanchez had the style to bother him in the first fight, where he crowded him. He didn't give him these defined moments to plant his weight and counter. But instead, Sanchez threw, like, I think it was a lead leg shin kick, and Pitbull just bang, bang, bang through the combo, and then like he's so good at punishing people for any openings they give him. So Daniel Weichel had some successes because he's very technical and very aware of the angles, not giving him these opportunities. So if McKee can fight an outside fight like he said he has, yeah, he has opportunities, but it's hard. Being longer, having longer arms, Pitbull loves that. It's like having longer arms than Rocky Marciano. Like, so what? Join the club. You know, everyone had longer arms than that dude.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so I do think, I do. But that's a fantastic fight. And the winner, yeah, you can say the winner has a real claim to be the best in the world at that weight. Because who else has gone through that?
Mm-hmm.
Or one of the best in the world.
I'll say this, regardless of what the outcome is, I hope Bellator does their best to keep AJ because when his contract is up, I can definitely see UFC making a money offer to him, probably Chandler level. I think AJ that's the thing is that I'm Scott Coker. I try to keep AJ for as long as I can, and as long as
definitely. Win or lose in this fight, I think they're going to talk after the fight. Win or lose, they should make him a significant offer, and it should be massive whether or not he wins the tournament. The fact that he made it there, that the age he is, the record he is, but I do think he's worth more. As much more money as the UFC pulls in, he's kind of worth more to Viacom CBS than he is to the UFC.
Mm-hmm. Now,
because
actually,
the UFC would have to start his footage from scratch. Mm-hmm. So Bellator has 17 Bellator branded fights of AJ McKee to promote him with. That's a long highlight, lots of finishes. The UFC would start from scratch. So with Chandler's an established name with enough highlights out there and a long enough career at an elite level that he was still worth it. Everyone knows who Michael Chandler is. You go to YouTube and see some classic fights he was in. Mm-hmm. McKee, it's a little different because he's newer on the scene. So the UFC would have to price their bid, unless they just go all in and just take it to Bellator. But I think Viacom CBS will work hard to win that bidding war, and they should. He's worth it. He's he's one of the guys you can build the company around.
So sorry, Teep. I just want to also make sure that we continue on. I want to ask you about Bellator rankings. Bellator officially is doing rankings now for their weight divisions. I'm curious to know, with the first set of rankings coming out, what do you think? Do you see are they legit? Do you see some discrepancies? Anything you disagree with? What do you think about the current Bellator rankings?
Okay, so I was, like a year and change ago, I was so frustrated with the lack of rankings that I made my own. I started ranking their roster and just speaking in those terms, like on Reddit, sometimes on Twitter, just being like, well, if you're not going to call them the X contender. I'm going to make my best estimation. I'll do it. So now they have rankings. That's a wonderful thing. But the inactivity provision combined with the 9 months they've taken off out of the last 15, which is the window, means that there are a lot of world-class fighters that weren't eligible to be ranked, like Larkin isn't ranked. The rumor is he's going to fight at middleweight, so that would make sense. He wouldn't be in the pool. But say he did come and fight at welterweight, he changed his mind, he comes back, so he'd be eligible once he fought, or he'd be eligible right away, I guess. He fought when Fedor last fought, but beating someone who's not ranked because of the time, the window that they have to have fought in, doesn't mean you beat a scrub or an unranked fighter. So I'm hoping the rankings panel is able to separate between is someone ranked and would they be ranked if it was normal and if there wasn't this window. Because a couple of the fighters in their post-fight things have said, well, the guy I beat wasn't ranked. But it's like, yeah, but that was because of ineligibility, not because he didn't have the resume to be in the pecking order somewhere.
I think that was always a problem.
Navigate.
The problem with older Bellator was that, unlike UFC, where UFC, they keep their fighters active for the most part, and so it's much more easier to discern where this guy is ranked, where this guy stands. Bellator would bring in people for one-off fights, and then they win that fight, but you never see them again until next year. So what do you do with somebody like that? And I think that was a problem. Is that Bellator, for the time, a lot of the time, especially when they were bringing, whenever they would go to UK, they bring these regional guys over. What do you do with these regional guys over that are also on multiple shows, but are just, kind of just fighting other regional guys or even like, I guess, top 50 guys around the world. So I think that was I think what we're seeing Bellator is, as long as they have a much more consistent fighter output, I think you can just make those rankings just work much easier, and there's a lot more behind it. But I understand that you do have some problems with particularly 170. I think you said that you're not that MVP is ranked a little bit too high for you.
Well, he was. I think right now with Jason Jackson with his last performance and the streak he's on, you could argue like MVP and Jason Jackson in the contendership below Yaroslav Amosov.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think you can make a coherent argument either to be top contender when Amosov's 25-0 and his last, whatever it is, 6 or 7 fights were at a good level. Like, even if you take out the rest, he's still on a better streak than those guys.
Yeah.
If you take out all of his highly beatable opponents. Just started the Soldic fight, the inexperienced Soldic. Onward, he's got a legit body of work. It's not just an empty record. It's like Khabib and some other guys. You could take out some of Anderson Silva's earlier fights. You'd be like, okay, that guy was vastly overmatched. It's fine, but that's not really like adding to the weight. And of course, Anderson Silva generated an enormous body of work, like separates those guys. But early on in the career, lots of guys have what we would say padded records. That's actually good. But it's amateur fights, pro fights. You want experience. You want to get used to winning and finding ways to win and try your styles out. But yeah, they had the MVP. 8 of the panelists voted for MVP as number 1 contender. That was silly, and they got chastised by the hardcore fans. And then in the next ranking, without either having fought, Amosov was in his rightful place. But it's like the rankings panel is human. They're still learning about the roster. Like, I've been following the roster. There's a lot of people. That's over 250 athletes to track. So even if, say, 170 of them are eligible, that's 170 athletes. Like, if they mostly follow the UFC and Bellator is more of a casual thing, like, they might watch the event, but they may not track all the prospects and who's beating who and all the nuance. It's a lot. So they're on a learning curve themselves. But I think overall they're solid. I disagree with some of it, but it's, with the eligibility provision, it's just going to be a little messy at first. They'll probably take everyone in the roster having a fight, and then okay, now everyone's had an opportunity to be in there, because with 9 months, the last 15, they didn't have shows. So it isn't like a 15-month normal schedule, the window. So if someone didn't fight in that window and then the COVID thing hit, and then in those few months to close out last year, if they didn't get a fight then, and then Bellator took the next 3 months off, not everyone is out of the rankings because they didn't want to fight. Most of them, it's just it didn't work out because of the schedule. They only had so many slots in cards that didn't match the number of athletes in the roster. So it'll all pan out. But I'm pretty hopeful about it. I think it's good. Let people talk a little bit, and as people fight, you know, we just have to keep badgering the panelists to not try to matchmake and be bullshit like that. Be cold-blooded. The sports ranking. It doesn't matter what fight you want to see. It's got nothing to do with where someone is in the pecking order as far as the sport. Because that's why they're doing it. They want not just the appearance of sport. They want to try and get it close to a sport. I think they're usually pretty fair as the booking team. But if they're shifting to this and that's going to inform their decisions, yeah, these guys, the panelists need to take it seriously. So you're messing with people's money if you're being dishonest. So
Well,
you're
here's
like, I just want to see MVP fight Lima. That's fine, but he's not the top contender. No one believes that. Even those 8 people didn't believe that.
let's be honest. They only they put MVP there because they know his name. It's like Connor. That's the reason why Connor is number 1 or number 2, whatever it is, for so long, because they know his name. That's why. It's not. It's
and they
not.
want to see the fight. They want to see Lima and MVP fight again. They're like, look, he's won 4 fights. What's the difference? Well, it's like, well, there is a difference. That's the whole thing. Like, I guess maybe that was the deep they wanted to go at first, and then they probably caught a lot of flack, and other people in the media who aren't on the panel making fun of them, and they were probably like, well, let me think about this for a minute. So it's okay. I mean, it corrected itself in that instance because it was so outrageous. So maybe lesser known fighters will. There is a hope that the rational people can help guide the panelists, because they're not all Bellator experts. They may be MMA, like deep in the MMA street. There's a lot of MMA, so they're gonna make mistakes, but it's all good.
But another topic I want to ask, and you just brought up the fight. I'm curious to get your thoughts. Jason Jackson versus Neiman Gracie. Saw a lot of negative feedback on this fight, not from a fight output standpoint, but also from a decision standpoint, where Jason Jackson won by split decision. I'll be honest. I think it should have been ruled a draw, because I think neither fighter did enough to win. I think this is a case where you could have said draw, because there's no discernible way to say that this person won in a clear-cut way. So that was my thoughts after the fight ended.
Yeah, I gave Jackson the first round. Close, but I thought clear. Close, but clear, if that makes any sense. I gave Jackson the first round. I thought Gracie definitely did enough to take the second round. And I gave Jackson the third round. So to me, it was 2-1. And the guy who saw it the other way, I don't know. The thing is, a lot of people influenced. Big John was like, Neiman Gracie. And I'm like, dude, that first round was mad close. Like, all 3 rounds. I mean, the second round to Gracie was I thought was pretty clear.
I was
all
surprised.
3 rounds had back and forth.
I was
He was
surprised.
being very, very much one way in that fight. I thought to a fault.
I was surprised that Jackson managed to take down Gracie. I'm going to say that was like, nothing on my MMA bingo card that I thought I would be checking off. But
Jackson is a beast, and he's training at a very high level.
Oh, he is.
That's the thing too, is the camp he's at. He's not, Gracie isn't the first guy who's got dangerous either wrestling or grappling that he's trained with. And this is a big advantage. That's why the big gyms put out the stuff. It's not just how nice the facility is. It doesn't have to be a nice facility. It's the level of martial art that people can hone their skills against. So Jason Jackson is right up there. And, there's like, separate from brand recognition, it's just how good he is. And so, he's one of the guys I've really been looking at, like, whoa, he could be a champ. I mean, Joey Black Ice Davis is my guy, who I think will become the top guy. But in the interim, yeah, I could see Jackson winning the title. He's really excellent. And I didn't have a problem with the decision other than that it was split, because I thought it was close but clear. It's all good, though. They're both excellent.
I was actually very disappointed the way Jason Jackson normally. I think he looked great in all of his previous fights that I've seen him in Bellator. I don't think he looked good at all in this fight, and neither did Neiman Gracie. I think it should have been rule of draw. I honestly think should have a rematch to get a definitive winner. I really do think that it was kind of bad output from both.
Wow. Well, if it was, if it was that close, I would definitely watch a rematch. I don't think Jackson's interested. I think he wants to move on. Mm-hmm. But they're both pretty young guys. Like, they can fight again. Mm-hmm. Have a fight or two and fight again. I mean, I enjoyed the fight because of being aware of the danger and I don't know, just stylistically, that was my favorite fight in the lead up, and it was probably the one I enjoyed the most. But mainly because of the tension of how the styles interacted. I was just kind of intrigued in the lead up, trying to figure out who had the advantage.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a 50-50 fight. So
also want to ask. So looks like the next contender for Juliana Velasquez will probably be kind of Watanabe. It looks like. Would you agree with that, Teep?
Is that what they're talking about?
I mean, she beat Lara. That seemed to be an unofficial number one contenders match. At least I would be surprised. I don't know unless they want to do McFarland rematch. I've seen nothing to indicate that it seemed like that this fight was going to be deciding who's going to fight Velasquez next.
I'd be cool with that. I want to see Keelholtz get that shot. She doesn't have a large resume. She's only 62, but her recent performances, especially when she just floored Kate Jackson, who contended for the title, so she just blasted her out. And I was like, I want to see that fight. So I actually had Keelholtz ranked top contender, but I could see them giving Watanabe the shot or an Ali Malay rematch. It's not, there's a lot of young ladies in it, but it's not as deep at the top as other divisions. So there's a lot of different options they could do. I think that would make some sense. It's not one where there's like someone's getting robbed or someone else gets the shot. Like when Velasquez was top contender, anyone else who gets the shot, you're kind of like, hey, it's not, like Amazov now. If they give someone else a shot other than Amazov, that's kind of an insult to our intelligence. Mm-hmm. It better be a timing issue or an injury issue. It better not be like, let's just give it to someone else. Like sometimes it's that clear. It just needs to happen. Just get it over with. Like with Davis and Nemkov, tournament or not, that was the fight. No one has the, people saying, Anderson. It's like, you can't have a guy coming off a loss. He's supposed to fight for the title when this other ex-champ's coming off wins, high-level wins. And even after he beat Manhoff, beating Manhoff is not the same as what Phil Davis is doing.
I also want to ask about, Bellator switching now exclusive to Showtime. What do you think this was a good decision on their part to go this route? Bellator has had an interesting, I guess, broadcast history. They used to they have been all over the place. They have been on exclusive to some channels when it came to some fights, particularly in the UK. They've been on pay-per-view. They don't do that anymore. They were on the what was it, CBS? Was it NBC Sports or CBS Sports?
Yep, CBS Sports.
CBS Sports, Spike TV. They
Paramount.
Spike TV / Paramount. Yeah. They have been everywhere. What do you think do you think going back to Showtime, especially for a subscription model for $4.99 a month, do you think that was a wise financial decision to do?
Yeah, definitely. This was epic. This was exactly what they needed. And I've been expecting this since I found out that the conglomerates merged. Because CBS owned Strikeforce and obviously Big CBS, meaning they had co-rights to that footage. All those great fights. So Viacom owned Bellator. They had a TV deal with them. Then they bought them up, fired Bjorn, brought in Coker when his non-compete expired. But when those two conglomerates merged, it's like Bellator's gonna end up on Showtime. That's where Strikeforce was. As Espinosa, that's a fight executive running. Now now they're a property, a TV property, instead of having a deal. But the effect is the same. And it means they can have Maro on the mic. Mm-hmm. So they got that 1-2 punch. They've got MMA, boxing on Showtime, Manelo's on the mic, and the production. I don't know if you noticed, I am absolutely loving the new heightened production.
Oh, I'll say that. I also like the on-screen graphics. I like that they no longer have that dumb little thing, red glove. Or that they keep the fight. Before, they would not keep the fighters names on for that long. They had them on for about 5 to 7 seconds, and then they go off. And if you were just tuning in, you'd be like, "Oh, who the fuck's who?" So I'm glad that they actually do what the UFC does. All the fighters' names are on during the fights, during the whole time that they're fighting. I think the production looks I like that. I'm glad that they have Morrow. I still think that John McCarthy. I don't. I'm not a fan of. I am not a fan of his commentary. I guess I could just leave it at that. I wish they could just have Morrow and I guess Josh Thompson or something. So just regular, just get rid of John McCarthy or something. Have him, I don't know, have him be the guy who's not commentating during the match, but I guess doing like stuff in between the matches. If that
Yeah,
makes sense.
I guess some people, I don't really feel any of that. I need Morrow or the English guy who did the Bellator Europe shows. He's got a great voice. I
Mm-hmm.
wonder if he's the guy who called some of the Calzaghe fights I used to love. Sounds like the same guy, like Calzaghe Lacey. I hear his voice, and I'm like, ooh, classic boxing. But those two guys, those are my favorites probably. But Big John, for me, it depends on the pairing. I think him and Goldie, it was two big booming voices, and the combo wasn't as good. But I've enjoyed Goldie in other pairings, and I enjoy Big John in the other pairing. So for me, John Amaro, hey, I'm good with it, man. Because it reminds, like, John refs so many of the great fights that are among my favorites all time. So he's just like in that fabric. So I don't really respond to him. Some people maybe step back from it a little bit. It bothers them. It doesn't bother me at all. But I think with Goldie and John, one of the two in there was okay. The two of them together, it was just, it's like having two really loud, splashy lead guitars. You don't need that, or
Mm-hmm.
or two bass players. You don't really need it. That kind of punch, but I certainly respect other people's like production wishes. I'm just happy, man. Everything's been just so great since they came back, so it's all good for me personally.
We got some time, so we'll talk about it. It was just announced Patchy Mix taking on James Gallagher. How are you looking forward to that match at Bellator 258?
Yeah, what a fucking fight! And I was like you, I was real hyped on Patchy Mix, still am, but like in the Archuleta fight, very interesting how that turned out. But this is excellent. I'm not sure who to favor. They have overlapping styles. Gallagher on the feet, his kicks feature more, whereas Mix likes to throw those hands. But they can both do it all, and they're both young, hungry. I got to hear your opinion on that. I figure it's a 50-50 fight, and it's just excellent. It's just so choice. It's the one I've been calling for on Twitter for months.
Mhm.
So I'm
So
happy as hell.
I would pick Patchy Mix. I think James Gallagher has shown he is good against. Has he really fought anybody who's a top level fighter? I can't recall. Like, I mean, the highest level fighter he ever fought was probably Ricky Banderas, and he lost that match. I'm trying to think if off the top of my head without looking up, but
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that Mix has fought at a higher level. I mean, Mix faced Archuleta and took hell in that fight and didn't wilt. I mean, he got hurt, but he wasn't like, he never caved. He was frustrated, and he just took hellish punishment to the body. So I think Mix is more proven as a fighter, but
yes,
stylistically, I don't know. The way
I
they line up, Gallagher is very special on the ground himself,
I
although
would
he's not
go.
as long limbed.
I would go with Mix. I would have to go with Mix based on how I've seen him fight against competition and what he does that competition. Mix
That's fair.
Gallagher has beat. I really don't want to say regional level fighters, but he's defeated for a time he was treated as if he was like the MVP of the bantamweight division in the UK. So I think he was given a lot of easy competition, particularly early in his Bellator career, and I just unfortunately I have to go by the level of competition. Mix, other than the loss against Archuleta, has basically demolished everybody that he's fought. And also he's submitted people who were previously unsubmittable, like Yuki Matoya and Rizin. Actually, I want to discuss this as well, T, because this just came in on the wire. Apparently MVP will be back at Bellator 258 taking on Derek Anderson, a match that it's been almost Khabib Ferguson level of getting booked then getting unbooked. So if this fight does happen, MVP versus Derek Anderson, what do you think about that match at 258?
I love that fight. I thought they were going to give up on it But if MVP is going to keep a busy schedule, which he was when they were actually having shows, like, yeah, fight all these guys. That is not a win that should get either guy a title shot. It's a better win for Anderson than it is for MVP because, Anderson is ranked though, and he should get his credit, but I think he's been fairly inactive, so he has like the one recent fight, which he won. So, I mean, credit to him, but I think it's a good fight. Stylistically, it's a pretty tough one for MVP. Anderson knows how to, like, he knows how to walk through hell strategically to stay in a fight, and MVP is not someone who fights well off the back foot, and so I think that's a tough fight. I'm looking forward to it. That's cool that they announced this fight and that it's not that far away. Not who I expected, but they had to do something with Anderson. He's got a good record. He just hasn't been very active. So Anderson is back. Derek Anderson's a serious dude. That's a good fight for him. And he might win. I'd favor MVP, but slightly, because Anderson knows how to exploit that. He's really, really tough, which goes a long way, because MVP, you saw like in the Rickles fight, Rickles was getting pieced up, and as tough as he was, he got to the point where he's like, damn, I'm just getting fucked. Like, Anderson would still try to fight, go out on his shield, in my opinion. In that situation, he would just be like, fuck it, just go for it, 100%. And that's a good attribute to have against someone who's playing psychological games like MVP is. Who do you favor? Do you know much of Anderson?
I'm familiar with a little bit of him. I would hope MVP. Here's the thing. When I think of MVP, I think there's more long-term business wise you can do with him. I don't think you can really build around Derek Anderson. I could be entirely wrong, but I think you want MVP because MVP is such a divisive figure. I think it in a good way, and he's a good talker. He knows how to sell a fight. And he's also, when he finishes pretty darn good. So I would hope that MVP wins from a business point of view, because I think that's who you want. You kind of want that trash talking, highlight reel finishing guy to do more with. What is there to do long term with Derek Anderson? That's not an insult. I'm not trying to insult him, but I'm thinking as a promoter as well. There's a lot more compelling things to do, I think, with MVP than with Derek Anderson.
I would 100%. Sorry about the bell. Yeah, I would 100% agree. There's more to do with MVP. I mean, he's kind of like with a busy schedule, he's a marketing dream come true, because he pisses people off enough they tune in to see him lose. Not every fighter can generate that kind of animosity in sort of like the reactionary fan base. He gets people paid.
And his knockout of Evangelista Santos, where he threw the Pokeball, went viral like that. Like a non-UFC finish going viral is incredibly rare, unless it's like some sort of bonkers type of finish. But the way that it was the way he did it, and then his antics after that helped make it a viral thing. And I think that's why he knows how to market himself. And I want a guy like that to be on to win, because I can do more with that. There's more ways to make money off that guy and to generate more buzz.
Although that's true, I would add the caveat though. The thing is, MVP is going to be. See, after the Lima fight, it's not like everyone forgot who MVP was. They're like, he got starched by Lima. That was great. But his haters could watch him get starched over and over again, or just get madder and madder if he keeps winning, and getting mad at the people he's fighting. But like, from Bellator's point of view, it's win-win as long as he doesn't leave the company. So like, say Ross Houston, who was undefeated, European, from Scotland, where they're planning to do a show. If he had just demolished MVP is still a star. Now he's become notable. Same thing like with Amazov. If Amazov just owns Lima, even though he's unknown now, he becomes notable, beating someone who's notable. It's not really a full loss unless one of them then leaves the company. Like with Chandler lost to Patricio. That was epic, right? But then Chandler beat some other top guys and left. So that's an actual promotional. I mean, it was a money decision, I'm sure, of all the parties involved. There's some great fights he's in. It's all good, but it would have been even better if he stayed, because you have that, because now you got like some of the top guys in Bellator have losses to Chandler, a lot of them. And so, it's just how it goes. Promotion game, people move around. Do the same thing when like Rory went to Bellator and he had the last win of the Woodley at the time. It's just something that happens. So I think with MVP, if he loses to someone, they become notable and praised by the people who just can't stand MVP. And Page is still going to school people he should school. I don't think this is that kind of fight, though. This particular fight, I don't think this is one where he's absolutely going to favorite to demolish Anderson. It's possible to severely underrate Anderson. He doesn't fight often, so you're not like seeing him. But he's very good, especially against this kind of fighter. I think he'll do better. But I'm a bit of an idiot, so I could be wrong about this. Let me ask you about a fight now. Paul Semtex Daley, Sabah Homasi. 20,000th time is a charm. And unless something happens with the weigh-ins in a few minutes, it's happening. I love this fight. How about you?
I think Homasi is has looked great in his last few fights. Who was it that he fought? Oh my God, I'm forgetting who he fought last.
Oh, that was that jump knee, wasn't it?
Oh my God. Fuck. I'm forgetting.
I'm on the move. I've had too many heads go.
Yeah.
Too many
But
names go through my
I
brain
think
today.
I think that's an incredibly interesting matchup now, especially with how much improved Homasi seems to be. But again, it's never one to doubt Paul Daley's Curtis. He fought Bobby Volker and he knocked him out, and then before
That's
that
right,
he fought
Volker,
Curtis Melander, who he basically out grappled. Surprisingly, never doubt Paul Daley's hook though. That hook comes in, and then boom, you are Scott Smith face.
Yeah, and Paul Daley is 175, cutting 5 pounds less at a contract weight, which makes a big difference as well. He goes through. He's stocky, but he goes through a lot to make. He's not a small body welterweight. He's not a tall guy. Good fight.
I just, I would like to see, I like the streak that Homasi's on, but I would have to, I have to go with Daley on this. I think that Daley has that punch power. He has that just explosiveness that's so rare. Two people who I think have it, Rumble Johnson and him, and it's so rare, especially for 170. That's not really a division that's really has that explosive-ish power. Really, you don't see it that often, and especially that devastating. But Paul Daley has that, and it's scary how he can. Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. The big question is if the way that Homasi can win, and we all know the way he can win, he just has to take down Daley. We have seen that Daley's takedown defense has not been ever good. Like I'm so surprised that like by now he hasn't done any sort of. It's almost Kevin Hollandish level of just. If he hasn't fixed it by now, then he'll never fix it. So at
his core, he's a striker. But I think the thing is, it's like we're talking like he's susceptible to elite level, like world class level stuff. He's not like the easiest guy in the world to take down. It just can be taken down. And like someone like Fitch taking him down, well, he did the same to Rory, easily. And Rory looked,
but also MVP,
equally helpless. Actually, Rory looked as or more helpless against Fitch, which is why I rated Gracie so highly for submitting old man Fitch, which led to my excitement for the Jason Jackson fight. That came from that sort of lineage of who was making who look silly in the cage. But I think Homasi, isn't Homasi at ATT?
Yes.
He's training at like probably the best welterweight gym in the world right now. Because isn't Jackson? I could be wrong. Is Jackson or he's at Stanford? Maybe he's at Stanford. But yeah, he's at ATT, man. They got monsters in that gym, so it's like it counts for a lot.
Also, but here's the thing as well. Homasi most of his losses have come by some sort of TKO knockouts. And so I listen, here's the thing. Paul Daley ain't going to submit Homasi, and I don't think it's going to grind out decision. That's why I think that Paul Daley is going to win, because he's taking on a guy who's already been knocked out by people who have strong. Well, here's some of his losses. We'll just go through them. Abdul Razik Al Hassan from UFC, been knocked out twice by him. Tim Means knocked him out. Reggie Pena knocked him out. And then, he had some knockouts at the beginning of his career. So he's fought people who have strong power, but not Daley level power, where it's just lights out, left hook or right hook. So, and I don't know if Homasi is going to, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Unfortunately, in the case of Paul Daley, there's no, you can't think after that because you are knocked out cold. So I have to go with Paul Daley on this by knockout.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, I think you'd have to favor Daley because you look at his body of work of knocking people out, which seems like, it seems like they're going to bang at least at the beginning, and any length of time standing with Paul Daley is problematic unless you're maybe Douglas Lima.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the other. Mm-hmm.
They stood, but pretty much, if you want to get Paul Daley, don't spend too much time on the feet at that range. That sort of like that long punching and shorter kicking range.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't go well. He hits and kicks far too hard. And it's just and then people make a mistake, like Brennan Ward, caught that spinning elbow, was it, from the clinch?
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Came back in and got iced.
Mm-hmm. But Homasi has looked good in his last fights, and I think he's got to fight this fight very smartly, very gingerly. He's got to pick when he wants to take down Daley, when not to take down Daley. And I think that's the thing. If I'm Homasi, I try to get him up against the cage, because that's probably where Daley probably has the least amount of power, just because not enough, reached or leverage to get to do that, the full power of his punches, and that's the best way to try to get down low and take him down that way. I know it's not maybe the way that he would want to win, Homasi, but that's the way you can beat Daley. Is just fight the fight that Daley doesn't want to fight.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. So we'll have to see. I guess it'll come down to the strategy, and if he goes to that, close the gap without catching something bad, yeah, his chances go up dramatically. Any
other fights you want to talk about? We got about less than 5 minutes left, Teep. So I'll leave any final.
Yeah, King Karl Albrektsson fighting Badin's brother, Viktor Nemkov, former M1 champion. That's a good fight. Obviously, Viktor wasn't going to go in the tournament with his brother in it, but I'm looking forward to that. I like watching Albrektsson fight.
It's interesting that he has beaten Nemkov as well. He's beat Vadim.
That's right. Back when they were both younger. They're not old now, but when they were even younger. Yeah, that's a great fight. I'm looking forward to that. There's a lot of fights to look forward to, but it's worth mentioning, especially J.J. Wilson fighting Pedro Carvalho. So Pedro's his only loss since he moved to SPG Island. Yeah, it's the champ. So, but J.J. Wilson is fire, and he's coming off a almost instant knockout, like clothesline almost knockout, and but he's a submission ace. He took a win over Claxton in a really, really hard fought fight. J.J. Wilson is a guy to watch. He could end up the champ. He's got an excellent skill set, tough as nails. So that's a fight to watch. I favor him in that fight. I'm really excited to see that. Carvalho's a pretty tricky problem for a guy.
Question.
Not for Pitbull, but for everyone else.
I want to ask this as well, since we got some time. Heavyweight division. Where's heavyweight? Because heavyweight seems to be in a void right now.
Yeah, from what Coker said, they're going to do a interim title. So for me, that should be between, basically you've got Minikov, Moldavsky, Congo, and then Big Tim is number one, and the other three in some order. So two of those guys.
Why is
fight each
Congo
other
there?
for the title.
Congo already has a chance, and he screwed it up. I don't think he should be in that conversation.
Yeah, I think he lost, so I have him number 4 contender behind the other three guys, behind Minikov, behind Big Tim, Minikov, and Moldavsky, and then Congo. But I don't think I can quite put Vassell. Maybe you could put Vassell over Congo. Not for marks, but beating Karatanov when he did. But I mean, was it Karatanov or was it Mitrion? What am I thinking? I'm so sleep deprived. Ignore that. But I think, like some combination of those guys. It's an interim title. Just get it going. If Fedor wins again, he's going to be tied up. They'll do another title. And then the two best of the 4 guys will end up fighting. No problem. Let me ask you, who does Fedor fight?
I think you try to do the Barnett fights. I honestly think you try to do that. Or if Coker, if Rizin doesn't want to do a monopoly on it, him versus Overeem. I think those are the only 2 fights you really can do with Fedor at this point.
What about JDF? Ghost of Fedor versus the Ghost of JDF. It's still, it's like, hey, these guys would just punch each other up.
I don't think I think that JDS he's at the point where I'm not interested in seeing him fight anymore based on how his last fights have done and how he's looked. I don't want to see that fight. I would be more. I hate to say it, but I think for every fight that he takes it takes years off his life, like substantially, and brain cells. And he's at a point where I'm no longer finding it fun to see him fight. It's like BJ Penn.
Yeah, that's cool. I haven't been watching him fight lately, but I'm always down to see Fedor knock out people who were around back in the day.
But here's the thing: is
that's my whole basis. It's not a stylistic clash. I'm just like, I could watch Fedor smash JDS.
I can, but it's not fun. It gets to a point where it's like watching Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali near the end of the career. It's like it's almost, you feel dirty watching them fight.
Yeah, I think if I'm invested enough in one or both the athletes, I can get over that. Like, I don't really feel that. But it's like with Fedor, I just want to see him fight a couple more times. It's all good. Whoever it is, whatever it is.
I agree, but now
so it could be anyway. It could be Bob Sapp. It could be BJ Penn. Fedor versus BJ Penn. I'm not gonna lie, I would watch it. I'd be laughing the whole time. But like, they can do it.
I get it. No.
They could do anything. Even when he came back and fought the 2-0 guy, former kickboxer in Rizin, I was just watching Fedor fight. It's not prime Fedor.
Oh, I get it. No, I get it. But I think also you have to pick and choose, unless unless a Full Metal Dojo wants to do something with Fedor, which I think would be that.
I don't think Overeem. I don't know if even today Overeem wants to fight Fedor. Never wanted to fight him.
It's a very good.
He was the champ when Fedor was signed to the company as the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the sport. He didn't want to fight him.
I guess if that's the case, then I think the Barnett Fedor fight's the most interesting fight to make from that point of view. If the Overeem fight doesn't happen,
who would you favor in that? Do you have a favorite?
I guess I would pick Fedor. I think I would pick Fedor to win that. Listen, I think that Fedor has fought much higher level grapplers than Barnett, and we've seen him demolish them like Big Nog. I know he got tapped out by Verdum. So I mean, but that's Verdum. He's probably the best heavyweight grappler in the world right now. Or not active. I don't even know if he's fighting anymore. So there's that. I know that there was some talk about doing a rematch between those two, but I'm not really interested. Fedor may want. I think that's something that it would be more along the lines of Fedor wants that rematch. But as a fan,
I think he went to PFL.
Oh yes, you're right. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, I would watch that fight, but I wouldn't expect it to be competitive. Fedor's retained too much of his speed.
But also,
I think
Oh, I was just gonna also say as well, like in terms of Barnett, I've interviewed him, and he does his Bellator status is that he's still signed, but he's still waiting for that fight. He was supposed to have that fight against Ronnie Marks, in Hawaii last year, but then like a whole bunch of shit happened, and that fight didn't.
Yeah, he had some issues.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
I think they rebooked it for the Mohegan Sun, and it didn't happen. But hey, that's 2 of the 4 kings of the Golden Age. So unless Krokop's coming back, and he is looking very in shape in his region.
I don't think Krokop's coming back. I think Krokop is done with fighting. I think that was a true retirement that he had. It would be great, if he kind of had like a real retirement match or a retirement ceremony
against Fedor, and against Fedor, winner and loser retires. Who knows? I don't know how many more fights Fedor's gonna have, because he's like Varnov passed away, so Fedor's the guy now.
Mm-hmm.
So his student, his team is increased in its importance.
Question is,
he's now responsible, because he started studying with Varnov. I think he was like 8 years old or something. He was a little kid, so it must have been extremely hard on him, and probably so who knows how much longer we'll even get to see him fight rather than being the coach, smiling coach.
I know that Cain Velasquez said that he was retired, but I'd be almost compelled. I would be okay with that fight happening, Velasquez versus Fedor in Bellator, like a one-off.
Yeah, I would love to see Fedor punch him. I think Fedor wins that fight. But even if I didn't think he would win, I'd watch that. But I just want to see Fedor against an interesting opponent.
I don't think you really can. I think because you want Fedor.
A lot of people fit that bill. What's that?
I don't think you really can, because the problem with that is that Fedor is, if you put him up against somebody who is an up and coming fighter, he has a chance to lose that fight. And I think you want Fedor to go out on a definite win. And I think if he fights an older,
yeah, maybe, but just an interesting fight, something that's compelling. So check it out. So say Steve Mowry beats his opponent this weekend, and they do, for some reason they're like, we want to see Fedor fight kind of like the freakish body proportion fight, like some of the fights of old, like with Schilt and Hongman. But Mowry's good. If they did that fight and Fedor got schooled, it's still kind of cool. It's interesting. What I don't want to see is, I don't want to see like Fedor, Ronnie Marks.
Oh no,
like that. I want to be like, I know who these guys are. It's like a brand thing. I want to have a clash. So it'd be Barnett, Cain, JDS, Overeem, any of the guys like that are interesting. That's why I love the Rampage fight. That was great. Fedor and Rampage, and the lead up and the personalities, the history between them.
I also think
those kinds of fights I love. People used to make fun of them, but I don't.
Well, here's the problem. If you put him against Steve Mowry, if Steve Mowry loses, he has a loss of Fedor, and I know to you, a loss of Fedor may mean nothing, but 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 I guess you could say perception is reality. If you lose to Fedor, if you want somebody, you don't want the momentum to be ruined by Fedor, or an older fighter who's near the end of their career. Do you get what I'm saying?
Well, I think in the case of Fedor team, in Bellator specifically, the whole team is there. So if you lose to Fedor, maybe you avenge it against Moldavsky. That's a fight I'd like to see if Mowry wins. Moldavsky, I want to see Moldavsky against one of the top handful of guys. Against Fortune. Fortune called out Moldavsky. That's a great fight.
Mm-hmm.
When he won. But for me, I'm very open on Fedor fights. I just want to see him fight. I want the two guys to be interesting. And if either one gets starched, that's better. I don't particularly want to see Fedor go to decision if I can avoid it.
Gotcha.
Win or lose. I'd rather see him get starched than win some sort of boring, depressing thing. Because Fedor is Mr. Action, Mr. No Boring Fight in the last couple decades. Or whatever,
and also in the end, it comes down to what Fedor wants. And I think that Fedor doesn't want to I think he wants to face somebody who he's, I think the Barnett fight in terms for Fedor, that's a fight that one of those big what if fights, kind of like when the Frank Mir one was at one point.
Yeah, I love it. That's probably the best one. Un- unless, as I say,
Because
broke up.
here's if Barnett loses, listen, you know what? It doesn't matter. If Fedor wins, you know he goes out on a win. If Fedor loses, he goes out on a loss to, not on a depressing loss, in my personal opinion. Because it's, you know, it's it's a win-win situation for everybody, no matter the outcome. You get to see two fan favorites going at it. You don't screw up your heavyweight rankings in any way. You don't screw up, you know, somebody a heavyweight prospect's momentum. And yeah, it's I think that's the fairest fight that you can do in would be those two. And
Yeah, yeah, that's
for
pretty
all
fair.
for all parties to be satisfied and for fans to be satisfied.
Yeah, I could see that. I'd be down for that. I hope they load up that card. I want to see Tokov fight either Vancinas or fight for the title.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Tokov is amazing. He's right in his prime. He's entered his prime. He's very experienced. He
Now,
needs to fight for that belt.
Teep, I gotta ask. I know that is it time for you to go work? If so, if you gotta leave, you know, you are more than welcome to leave and give your plugs if you gotta leave.
Yeah, I do have to go to work in a couple minutes here.
Yeah, but you know, I'm gonna let
a couple minutes.
if you. Oh, okay. Well, do you want to give your plugs for the time being? Or you know, I'll let you decide how you want to end the show.
Yeah, so that might be. I'm trying to think if there's a couple other Bellator things, but my announcement was so I'm going to be producing content for FightCity.com as in a two-pronged attack. One will be coverage and analysis of Bellator, one of my main passions, and the other, because Bellator, it's not like boxing. MMA generally runs in a league format. I don't like it. I want the Ali Act, so that stops happening. But it's basically the league format, so I follow them as a league. Simultaneously, I'll be producing content on the great Samuel Langford, Canadian-born Boston Bone Crusher, amazing fighter with an incomparable resume that's just woven into the very fabric of the early era of boxing, and who's actually buried in the area here, along with several other great Canadian boxers who fought out of Boston at the turn of basically, the 1900s sort of, and the years surrounding that. This was one of the hubs for boxing. So I'm going to be producing content on the Fight City regarding Sam Langford and his great contemporaries, and also covering Bellator. That's epic. The Fight City is a boxing website. I think they've only just touched on mixed rules fighting, so this is quite a coup where MMA, we're going to get some coverage on there, courtesy of myself, but then also producing the old school boxing content. And I wanted to break it on your show just because you're awesome. We've talked so many times that, rather than just tweet it out and whatever, and it's only as big a deal as whatever I produce moving forward on the site.
It's glad that to see somebody else getting into the, I guess, MMA content or the combat sports content sphere. It's always good to see more people and voices, giving their own takeaways from on the sport. And also, the boxing stuff sounds great, especially but especially because with the content being that it's so segregated now, with 90% of it being UFC, and then the occasional Rizin and occasionally Bellator. I guess we'll see. We'll have to see about what happens with PFL when they start up next week. And that, it's good to have more voices, especially with MMA. I think there needs to be more. We need to hear more. I think sometimes even just the fans themselves make better content, more interesting content on fights, fighters, promotions than the big leagues does.
Yeah, I know that when I was really getting into MMA, this is like 2008, Kung Lee, Frank Shamrock, set my hair on fire, really driving me beyond the rational appreciation of mixed rules into rabid fandom. It was a hardcore fan that hooked me up with the fabric and help understand the texture of the wider sport, which was very confusing at the time. Kind of like it is now, but there's even more shows now. it's the same thing. There's lots of stuff going on everywhere. Like I'm not following the PFL or what are they, ACA now? Or M1 and Cage War. There's lots of great, or the UFC. There's lots of great MMA that I'm not following. One championship. I'm hanging on to Rizin. I'm trying, but my schedule is insane. Before I even spend 10 seconds on combat sports, my schedule right now is insanity. So I'm just following Bellator as a league, touching base with Rizin, especially with the co-promotion, and then focusing on old school, early gloved era boxing, which is epic, and the texture of those divisions blows anything in any combat sport away today. Like for instance, in his first full year, Sam Langford had, in his first full year, he had like 27 fights. I think it was 26 fights in the no contest in 1 year. That's how, and he was a teenager. And at the end of the year, he fought to a draw at the very end of the year with the great Jack Blackburn, who became Joe Lewis's coach and coached other champions. Joe Lewis was his protege. And Jack Blackburn fought everybody. So he drew with him who was another top guy in that weight at the end of his first year. And he beat the great Joe Gans, who was not just a pound for pound great in his day, but one of the most influential boxers of all time. Langford beat him as a teenager over 15 rounds. And he's the world lightweight champion at the time when there was just one world lightweight champion for the whole. And Langford beat him. He was a catch weight. He was 2 pounds over, so he didn't get the title. And Langford never won a world title. But his career is incredible and epic. It's woven in, and there's a lineage that flows from the men of those times through guys like Jack Blackburn that then carried on, and you can see through the coaches and the prominent fighters the texture that leads its way all the way to today. Although things get broken off, so it's a fascinating thing, and I look forward to that. I also look forward to covering Bellator with a lot of analysis because I've been following the roster a long time. So some of these matchups, I'm not really into like the soap opera stuff, even though I'm guilty of enjoying it. It's more like martial arts collision, and I like the way they book. I hope the rankings don't screw up the way they generally put fights together and build fighters in parallel. The things that Strikeforce was doing, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's always the trade off. If you have rankings, you better stick to them, because if you don't, then it's I think that's a real shitty thing to do. I don't like that. Then your UFC where Connor is gets title shots despite being on like a losing streak or something like that, or you get those outliers. So that's a problem. That if you have rankings, you gotta stick to them. If you don't stick to them, then you're gonna look like a piece of shit. If you stick to them, listen, it may result in boring fights, but hey, that's kind of like the give or take with it. If you want people to take your rankings seriously, you gotta stick by them. That's just how it is.
Yeah, I wouldn't want them to book by fame. I mean, they're not a pay-per-view company really, so they don't need to. I mean, there's a benefit to bigger fights, but their selling point is that, hey, this kind of sport. Like, look at this tournament. Nemkov is fighting the top contender in the opening round. The only guy who has the clear, absolute ironclad claim from the top contender is getting his title shot right away. Even if maybe Bader's the other favorite, the number 2 seed, and he's in the opposite bracket, which is something Rich Child loves to do. They did it with Fedor and Barnett. They did it with Bader and Fedor and the other one. So, but I love this because to me, the top two guys, the champion and top contender, they're fighting. So I love it. I don't like it when it kind of seems BS the way people get screwed, like Amazov, like where they're like MVP's top contender. Look, I have a lot of respect for Ross Houston, but no, you can't have that win and those other wins and stack it up against Amazov. Mm-hmm. Say he's a top contender because he's famous. It doesn't matter that he's famous. The NFL team that runs the ball and doesn't have the run and gun offense, right? They have the better record and they win to the playoffs. Swap them in for a passing team because they got the guys with the flashier outfits to sell more. You're selling sport. It's entertainment, but it's sport. If you're not selling sport, you're selling a soap opera, which is more like what the UFC does. Is that it is sport, a sporting contest, but it's really like run like a pro wrestling league, like operation.
I do. You can. Mm-hmm. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, but there's still a lot of things, but it means they'll play with that and start treating people like they're idiots. with the rankings, especially when you find out they're emailing the quote unquote panel through the UG. They're telling them how to rank. So it's not a real ranking. You know, it's not like they're accountable to them anyway. But they're even sending people like, well, here's how you should think about this. Here's how you should think about this fight. So it's just what the company wants. That is not what I want. I don't want the company. So that's why I advocate for the Ali Act. Third-party rankings might have an issue too, but it's better than the promoter being like, what works to my advantage? Because they're actually vying with the athlete within that framework for money. So they shouldn't control it. So this is a good step in the right direction, I guess is what I'm saying. Media, even for their fault, doing it rather than the actual promoter as like the god of everything, is better. And even better would be the Ali Act passing. And then you get third-party cross-org ranking and fight keep their ranking, whoever's promoting them. You know what I mean? Like imagine Anthony Joshua switches promoter. Is he now not one of the top 2 heavyweights in the world? Can Eddie Hearn be like, well, F you then, Joshua, you're now unranked? No, because Eddie Hearn has no say. Eddie Hearn has to kiss Anthony Joshua's ass. Because Joshua has protections and there are limits on the length of the contract and what he can be asked to do. So that's why you see boxing promoters have to kiss the star's ass. Because they can leave. They have ways out. They don't have ways out in MMA. You know, like there are guys like Nick Diaz. He's still under contract. Like he can't just go fight somewhere else. This is years since he's been in the cage. All they have to do is offer him a shitty fight every 3 months that he's obviously not going to take, and boom, he's stuck in contract forever. That's not cool. You know, you can't do that in boxing. You don't see that in boxing. It's very rare, I should say. There have been legal stuff occasionally that keep people out of competition. But people can get fights. You know, Dillian White can turn down $5 million for short notice with Joshua and not be just stuck on the bench for 4 months as punishment. You can go book a different fight. You know, Ortiz did that. Turned down Joshua short notice. Went for a different fight. It didn't hamper his career. So MMA needs that desperately because structurally it's completely corrupt. It's all the weight is away from the athletes who should have the biggest say because those are guys getting fucked up. They're the ones with training injuries. They're the ones who sweat. And you can't tell me it's the same. Scott Coker, Dana White, even Ray Zeppo at the age he is now. What's his name from one championship? City Tong.
Patchy?
Yeah. Sakibara. Respect to all these guys. The guys that none of those guys are going to trade places with, say, you know, this dude who's about to fight Steve Mowry. So it's like if that guy beat Steve Mowry and Mowry was considered somewhere ranked, he should earn that stuff independent of what show he's on or whatever. The Ali Act sort of mandates those firewalls between the promoter and the sanctioning body and management. And that's why boxers make all the money. Long story short, that's why boxers make all the money. That's why the site fees are going to Fury and Joshua largely.
Well, you
People
know,
are bidding for it.
Also, you know, that's why, you know, MMA fighters, as soon as they win a title, they're something like, I want to fight Mayweather. I want to fight, they want to fight Tyson Fury. They want to fight Joshua. They want to fight Logan Paul or the other one.
Right. They want a boxing payday. And because for a big star, that's where it's at. I'm sorry. That's where it's at. It's not even comparable.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest MMA person, other than like a rare guy like Conor, but there are lots of people who make lots of millions of dollars in boxing. Because they get such a large cut.
The other thing, the big myth is that when Conor's on a fight, everybody else on the card makes money. That has been proven to not be true. Who is it? I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was Derek. Who's a fighter who just beat Kevin Holland? Was it Derek Anderson? No. Who's the one who just beat Kevin Holland? I think it was him who said that. Derek Brunson, not Derek Anderson. It was actually the second fighter who beat Kevin Holland. But he basically said, you know, when Conor's on a card, we don't always get more money. So yeah, that's the myth that somehow the biggest star on the card gets everybody more money is patently false and not true.
No, unless they have pay-per-view points built into their contract for a non-title fight. Nick Diaz did, but he was one of the exceptions. Most people do not have that. Nick Diaz brags about having that. They don't do that lightly. They don't give you pay-per-view points for a non-title fight.
Does that even matter now? Does pay-per-view points even matter now because of the ESPN streaming thing?
Well, they guarantee. ESPN has like a guarantee they make UFC, and then they keep a lot of the overage if they meet the goals and stuff like that. So they have it set up so the UFC definitely makes money. But I'm assuming the buys still go toward the contracts. I mean, what do they do? Unilaterally just say now there's no pay-per-view points? That would have come out. I mean, certain people are big enough to be like, get out of here. Not doing that.
No, not really. Not, O'Connor would be the biggest one. Would be the biggest. Listen, I'm sure we don't hear a lot about those UFC contracts, and we suppose that there's a lot of things that are. I think a lot of people make these random guesses and based on nothing about what are on fighters' contracts and all that stuff. I don't think anybody has there ever been even a UFC contract released to the public. I know we had Enson Inoue release his Pride contract publicly.
Yeah, Alvarez, I think his came out, but also the class action lawsuit is revealing there are a lot of documents. So there you can see things like Joe Silva emailing people offering them just like a generic $2,000 escalator renewal contract.
Mm-hmm.
Like you win a fight, right, and you just get $2,000 more to show and win the next time out. That's how fast your career grows. So that's like the rate of inflation. You get, if you're lucky, you'll outpace inflation in how much.
But also, here's the other thing as well. And this point was brought up as well. You have a lot of fighters who come from probably from lower income brackets, especially the ones that come from foreign countries like Brazil, Dagestan, and other countries where they didn't grow up with a lot of money. So to them, the smallest, the more is when they see that check, that offer with 3 zeros on it, they think to them that's a lot of money. But listen, we saw someone like Jimmy Flick, who just recently retired, despite the fact that he probably had a great career, a future in MMA, but apparently he was like, I have a great job now, and that's paying me more than what I have to worry about in my UFC career. There was the UFC fighter, trying to remember what his name was a few years ago. He was also a Wall Street broker, and he quit after like 3 or 4 fights because he's like, I'm making more money on my day job than I am fighting. Why spend all this time killing myself for this? And you see that with a lot of fighters who tend to have more stable day jobs, or maybe who come from a much more economically stable background.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen, remember,
keep them broke. I mean, Dana White kind of said as much. I keep my guys hungry. Like that guy's worth hundreds of millions, and he doesn't want people walking around just and not the fucking 50. Being a millionaire, you made $1 million. Like, yeah, it's a lot of money to people who have no money, but it's not like it used to be. It's like Benny Leonard being a millionaire is a big fucking deal, right?
Oh yeah, no, listen, yeah, that's why
losing millions in the stock market, but it's not like that now, where the guy's whole career leaves him with $4 million. There are guys who make that in a fight easy. That's not even a giant payday for boxing. $4 million. It's big, but it's not like, oh my God, that guy made $4 million. In MMA, you'd be like, whoa, that dude was guaranteed $4 million. It's different. It's just different because the cut is so off. So MMA makes a lot of money, but a lot of that just goes to, pay down the debt and Endeavor's corporate investor dividend.
Mm-hmm. That's
really what it is. They paid out $300 million because they've crunched the revenue down to 16%. 16%, 16 cents on the dollar. The athletes get. So in boxing, like the top guy can command a huge percentage. 70, 80% for all the athletes combined. Sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just different. So, you're making an actual multiple of the percentage. It's much easier to get rich as a top level boxer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Dillian White is making big badass money, better than most MMA champs in the world.
No, it's unfortunate. It sucks. It's unfortunate. But with that being said, Teep, I'm starting to come down to the wire myself. I want to give you an opportunity to give all of your plugs for all the stuff that you're doing, or where people can reach you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at TeeptotheJunk, TEET, TeeptotheJunk, kicking the ball. And shout out to the boys on Reddit, and just really thank you for having me. Putting out quite a bit of Bellator content analysis. My thoughts on the rankings, because I think they're still the panelists themselves are still figuring it out, and so we're all going to sort of like just bring them along. They don't do anything stupid. The hardcore fans. I'm still kind of just a hardcore fan. It's spirit, even if I'm creating, content. So, yeah, just look for everything, and I really appreciate you having me. And I got to have you on my podcast, which will be launching fairly soon, and feature on the site and other podcast sites, streaming sites. More to come on that. But thanks for predictions, and we should wager something or do a 200 push-up challenge or something for if Rumble Nemkov happens.
Yeah, fair. Maybe.
Five sets of 40. 5 sets of 40.
Maybe we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. But for people that want to reach us at We Are Rising Podcast, you can reach us at We Are Rising Pod. Email us at We Are Rising Podcast at gmail.com. Available on Stitcher, SoundCloud, and live on YouTube as well. And yeah, Teep, looking forward to what you're going to be bringing to the MMA sphere, and as well to the looking forward to future Bellator talk.
Awesome, man. Thanks again.
Okay, great.